everyone. I have a story to share with you today. It's called The Biggest Pumpkin Ever, and the words were written by Stephen Kroll, and the pictures were made by Jenny Bassett. If I turn the page, here's the title page. There's the title of the story right there, and there's a house. There's a mouse living there, and here's a garden. Ooh, I see something growing right there. Our story starts out like this. Once there were two mice who fell in love with the same pumpkin. Do you think it's that pumpkin right there? Clayton, the house mouse, noticed it one day in the vegetable garden. It was still little and green, but Clayton thought he could make it grow really big. It might even get big enough to win the grand prize at the town pumpkin contest. Ooh, he's dreaming about his pumpkin growing really big and winning the prize. Desmond, the field mouse, discovered the pumpkin the same day. He thought that if he helped it grow, it could become the biggest jack-o'-lantern in the world. Ooh, that's what he's thinking about. So two mouse. Clayton the house mouse, Desmond the field mouse. They both love the same pumpkin and have different ideas about what to do with it. That afternoon, Clayton watered the pumpkin. He also mixed up some fertilizer of manure and water. He spread the mixture around the pumpkin to make it grow bigger. That very same night, Desmond went into the garden. He watered the pumpkin too, and he also spread some manure mixed with water around it. Ooh, they're both taking good care of the pumpkin. The next day, Clayton watered and fertilized the pumpkin again. The next night, Desmond did the same, and the pumpkin began to grow. By the end of a month, the pumpkin was so large, Clayton couldn't believe his eyes. Look, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Clayton can't believe it. It's getting so big. My goodness, said Clayton's mother, and it's not even full grown yet. Clayton shrugged. All I do is water it, he said. Clayton's mother whispered in his ear, if you want the pumpkin to grow bigger faster, you should use sugar water. Water with some sugar in it. Interesting idea. That night, Desmond brought his brother Morris to see the pumpkin. Morris knew everything there was to know about growing things. That's some pumpkin, he said. Desmond shrugged. All I do is water it, he said. Morris whispered in his ear. You should try using sugar water, he said. The next day, Clayton dug a small hole beside the pumpkin vine, and in the hole he placed a bowl full of sugar water. He cut into the vine a few inches from the pumpkin, and in the cut he put one end of a candle wick. Interesting. A candle wick is like a piece of string that really sucks up liquid, kind of like a straw. In the cut, he put one end of a piece of a candle wick, and then he put the other end of the candle wick in the bowl of sugar water. So there it is. There's the hole he dug, and the cup of sugar water, and the vine, and the candle wick. So the wick can suck up the water from the bowl into the vine. Interesting. That night, on the other side of the pumpkin, Desmond did exactly the same thing. Oh my goodness. So there's the one that Clayton made, and there's the one that Desmond made. Oh, interesting. Within a week, the pumpkin was twice the size it had been before. Whoa, amazing. Within 2 weeks, it was absolutely enormous. It's bigger than the mouse, taller than the mouse. Clayton was amazed. He ran down the road and peeked into his friend Jimmy's pumpkin patch. The pumpkin Jimmy was growing for the contest looked much smaller. Clayton scratched his head. I have an amazing pumpkin, he said out loud, and I think I'm going to win the contest. That night, Desmond and his brother Morris spent a long time looking at the pumpkin. How do you think it got that big? Desmond asked. Morris shrugged. A little luck, a little skill. It's going to make some jack-o'-lantern, said Desmond. It sure is, said Morris. That is a big pumpkin for sure. A week later, Clayton noticed the pumpkin was bigger than the family car. Whoa! Their pumpkin was bigger than their car. During the day, everyone he knew came by to admire it. Look at all the people looking at it. And at night, all the field mice gathered around to do the same. They're amazed at how big that pumpkin is. By now, summer was almost over. In a week, the pumpkin would be full grown and start turning yellowish and then orange. A few weeks after that, it would be ripe and ready for the pumpkin contest. Clayton could hardly wait. The pumpkin was growing so fast it would soon be bigger than his house. Whoa. Then he had a terrible thought. Oh no. If the pumpkin was so big, how would he get it to the contest? It wouldn't fit in his red wagon, and it wouldn't even fit in his truck. Clayton, he decided to worry about it when the time came. That night, the weather grew colder. Thinking there might be an early frost, Clayton rushed out to the pumpkin with his blanket. One was not enough. Soon, he was rushing back and forth, carrying all the blankets from his house. And as he worked, he hummed a little song. And as he hummed, he heard someone else singing. What? He also began to realize that someone else was covering the pumpkin with blankets. Interesting. So Clayton's covering it up. He hears someone else singing and notices there are more blankets than what he put on. Desmond, too, had seen the danger of an early frost. He, too, had brought blankets for the pumpkin. And as he worked, he sang a little song. And as he sang, he began to realize that someone else was working and humming. Clayton stopped humming. He put down his pile of blankets and peered around the corner of the pumpkin. Desmond stopped singing. He put down his blankets and peered around the corner of the pumpkin. There they are, peeking around the corner. Oh! The two of them bumped heads and fell down. Oh my goodness. You've been feeding the pumpkin, said Clayton. You've been feeding the pumpkin, said Desmond. That's why it got so big, said Clayton. That's why it got so big, said Desmond. They burst out laughing. Isn't that so funny? They were both taking such good care of the pumpkin and they didn't even know it. When everything had been explained, Clayton said, I know I'll win the contest if I can get the pumpkin to town. Desmond smiled. I'll help you. Just let me carve the pumpkin into a jack-o'-lantern for Halloween when the contest is over. Oh. It's a deal, said Clayton. A deal, said Desmond, and they shook on it. Oh, what a good idea. They can both use the pumpkin for what they planned. Clayton can bring it to the contest and Desmond will help, and then Desmond can cut a jack-o'-lantern after the contest is done. That's a really good plan. So, the morning of the contest was bright and sunny. Mice were bringing their pumpkins to the town square by truck and car and wagon. Some were rolling them on the ground. There's someone rolling their pumpkin. Suddenly, they all stopped short, all those people rolling their pumpkins and pushing their pumpkins. Over the field came the biggest pumpkin anyone had ever seen. It was being pulled by 100 field mice on motorcycles. What? They're pulling the pumpkin. That is a very creative way to get it there. Whoa. When the pumpkin reached town, it was too big for any of the streets. Clayton had to explain why they couldn't bring it to the square. The mayor understood at once. He led the crowd of mice to the giant pumpkin and pinned the first place ribbon on its side. Then everyone danced around it. Oh, Clayton won the prize. Yay! There's his prize. Who could have believed this? Said Clayton as he danced. Who would have believed this? Said Desmond at the same moment. They're both surprised. When the celebration was over, the 100 field mice pulled the pumpkin back to the field. The day before Halloween, they carved it into the best jack-o'-lantern ever. I like how they're using buckets to go into the pumpkin and fill it up with seeds and then put the bucket out and dump them out on the ground. Those are some big seeds. And on Halloween night, its wonderful smiling face could be seen glowing for miles around. There it is. It looks so great. Jack-o'-lanterns are so fun this time of year. I wonder if your family has made a jack-o'-lantern and put a light inside and put it outside. Ooh, it's so fun to look at when it's dark out. If your family didn't, I bet you could walk around your neighborhood and maybe see some jack-o'-lanterns. Cool. All right, I hope you all have a good day, and I'll see you soon.